I could not be happier than to be here with who I consider a friend and somebody that does a great job for the faithful altogether. And that's Mark Adams. You know him probably at 49ers Camelot, 49ers Web Zone. This guy does the best work out there, especially in Renton for the 49ers. Mark, how we doing today?
Great, John. Sorry you're not feeling well, but hey, hopefully the 49ers can win for you on Saturday and look better and make everything. Is that when you started feeling bad? Was Sunday when
I
you were
think
watching that
that's what
offensive
probably
line?
right when that first field goal missed, it was just done from there. And thanks a
Yeah.
lot, Jake Moody. Now, Mark, you are fighting the good fight. All of us Niners fans, the faithful, we love this guy by the name of Catfish. Talk
Yeah.
to us about it. What do you got going on? And man, how can we support this move? Because this is incredible.
Yeah, so in 2022, the early part of 2022, I released a story about Roger Craig making his case that he should be in the Hall of Fame. When I first, what happened is I heard Larry Krueger make this incredible case, as far as the numbers, and I'm going to throw some of these out here in just a minute. And so I decided, I want to write a story on that. And so I reached out to Larry and just to ask him, hey, can I have a copy of those numbers that you are reading? And he instead called me and said, you need to write a story about this, and you need to reach out to guys like Joe Montana and Steve Young and Jerry Rice, and you need to get them on board because that's going to carry a lot of weight. And I said, how in the world do I get a hold of them? Do you know? And he goes, no. And I said, well, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get a hold of these guys. But I decided to try anyway. Just so happened to meet a guy who used to work for the 49ers back in the dynasty days, and reached out to him, told him, hey, here's what I'm doing. Can you help me reach out to a couple of players? And he goes, yeah, who do you want? And so I started listing these Hall of Famers, and he goes, all right. And then I started listing Brent Jones and George Seifert and Carmen Policy and Eddie DeBartolo and all these others. And he's given me all of them. And so I wrote that story, had Montana and Rice and Ronnie Lott and all these guys. And so then after that, I wrote a follow-up from an opposing standpoint. So guys that played against him. So we got statements from Mike Singletary and Harry Carson, and then found some old statements back from the 80s where there were players and coaches saying things like Roger Craig's the best running back in the game, things like that. Well, he still didn't get in last year. So this year we decided at 49ers Web Zone, let's do a 4-part podcast series. Let's try to get some of these guys back. And so that's what we've done. We have Steve Young and Ronnie Lott and Brent Jones and Carmen Policy, Jesse Sapolo, Randy Cross, Guy McIntyre. And then we also have some media members like Matt Miyoko and Larry Krueger, and then some Hall of Fame voters like Rick Gosselin and Clark Judge. Daniel Brown's not a Hall of Famer, but he's close to Roger. And so I feel like we made a really compelling case that Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame. And so right now, what we're just wanting people to do is go watch, share it. The Hall of Fame voters have a copy of this, so it's not like you have to call and bug them or anything like that. But we just want people sharing it because what we feel like Roger Craig needs, because I actually had one of the Hall of Fame voters told me the biggest issue that Roger Craig faces right now is that it's been so long since he played that some of these younger Hall of Fame voters are coming in and don't even know who he is. And so that's troubling. And last year, Roger Craig, so he's in the finals, in the final 12 right now. And on Tuesday, they'll be voting to decide, what happens next. But the problem is that last year he didn't even make the final 12, and so that is an
So we're
issue
seeing
for
progress.
Sure.
We're seeing progress.
Yeah.
And so here's my question. Where do we find this 4-part documentary series that you've worked on, this podcast series? If I've never heard of you and I don't follow you on social, what's the best way to find it?
You can go to YouTube and find me at 49ers Camelot. You can also find me wherever you listen to your audio podcast. So whether it's Apple or Spotify or whatever it is. I tried to have the show on all of those places. So you can go, if you go to YouTube, it's actually part of a playlist called the Hall of Fame Case for Roger Craig. So you can go there and find it. And the first session is me interviewing Larry Krueger and asking the question, why is Roger Craig not in the Hall of Fame? Then the second part is Larry Krueger sharing the numbers that are compelling why he should be in the Hall of Fame. Then part 3 is the media making the case, and then part 4 is the players.
That's awesome. Yeah, my whole conversation with, what back whenever I coached and we would have these debates in the off season with other coaches is, can you tell the story of the running back position, in the 80s without mentioning Roger Craig? And I think,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Right.
Everybody kind of hangs their hat on the 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, first to ever do it. It's only happened 3 times. That's incredible. But he was kind of a fortune teller for what the running back position would be. And so I
Mm-hmm.
would argue, not only could you not tell the story of Roger Craig back then, you can't tell the story of the running back position now without Roger Craig. He's
Yeah.
laid the the groundwork for what this position has become in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve Young said it on the podcast. He said that the days of the eye back are soon to be over. That position is being phased out, that part of the position. And he said that what we're going to be seeing is a lot of guys like Christian McCaffrey, and that all started with Roger Craig. And he said when you change the game, when you change a position like Roger Craig did, because he was the first dual threat like that. When you change the game, you should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Now, let me ask you this, just kind of off the cuff here. What was one of the interviews that somebody responded in a certain way and you were just like, whoa, I had no clue? Because I think we all know about Roger Craig. We know a lot of the stats, we know a lot of those things. But what was something that you learned during this process that was just kind of like, wow, this is really interesting?
Well, obviously, like I mentioned before, when one of the media members said, we really have to flood the market with Roger Craig because he's been forgotten. And part of the disappointing thing is that when you get into this part of where you're now a seniors candidate, your chances go way down. And so it's sad because a lot of these guys deserve to be in, not just Roger Craig, and some of them are dying. Like Ken Stabler died and then got in, and so I've got a fly buzzing around me. And so that's sad, and what we want to see is for Roger is that he gets in to where he can actually enjoy it. But I would say that was probably the most shocking thing. Now, a lot of the numbers that Larry unearthed were really shocking to me. For example, Roger Craig has more touchdown catches and receiving yards than John Stallworth, who was a wide receiver in the Hall of Fame. So a running back with more catches and more receiving yards than a Hall of Fame receiver, and yet he can't get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If Roger Craig was a receiver, I think he'd probably be in, but he's graded as a running back, and so he doesn't have the Eric Dickerson numbers or the Earl Campbell numbers, although he does have more total yards than Earl Campbell had. He doesn't have the rushing yards because the way it has been set up for years is that you had to reach that 10,000 mark, and Roger came in under that. So as far as a running back, people look at that, and that's one of the things that the Hall of Fame voter that I talked to said is that the problem is these younger voters are just looking at stats, and so they're not seeing the big picture. They're not seeing the fact that
Right.
Bill Walsh told Matt Mayoko, I couldn't fully run my offense until I had Roger Craig. That is a huge statement for Bill Walsh to say, I can't fully run my offense until I had Roger Craig. That's monstrous to me.
That's incredible, man. Mark, you are doing the good work, and I'm excited. It's short week, and so we're going to find out soon enough if he gets in, but we're going to keep fighting for catfish on our own. One more time, where can everybody follow you, and where can everybody find this series?
You can find me wherever, on Twitter at 49ers Camelot, and then on YouTube, same thing, or wherever you catch your audio podcasts. I'm right there at 49ers Camelot.
I love it. Guys, this is what it means to be faithful. You bridge the past with the present, looking toward the future. Go check this out. Thank you, Mark, for all that you're doing. And until next time, guys, stay strong, faithful.
Thanks, John.